Legislators to watch by Governing Magazine and one of the 100 most influential Georgians by Georgia Twain. She has been honored as a champion for Georgia cities by the Georgia Municipal Association. It is our honor to have her speak here today. Please welcome Stacey Abrams.
Did like we did on MARTA, 1052, which is not in and of itself a terrible bill, but it still fails to solve the problem of the handcuffs on MARTA. We are the only major metropolitan public transit system that says that we are going to treat you like kindergartners and not let you spend the money the way you need to. And until we solve that problem, I think we're going to continue to be held back in terms of public transportation. And the ugly. We don't like poor people, according to the Georgia General Assembly. We believe that instead of finding them jobs, we should just drug test them and give jobs to somebody else. I find it to be anathema to who we are as Georgians, and more importantly, who we are as humans, that we would target the one population that is not able to fight back. Because we're not just going after the poor, this goes after the extremely poor. To receive TANF, you have to be at below the poverty level, usually an income of around $11,000 to $15,000 for a family of 3. If you can live off of $300 a month, mazel tov, most people can't. And yet this bill will not only say that we target you and believe you to be a worse human because you happen to be on TANF, unlike every other citizen who receives some public benefit, but we're going to make you pay for your own test. And there's just something craven and wrong about that, and I don't understand why anyone in Georgia would support that idea. But just in case I got mad about poor people, we decided we don't like women either, and so we have HB 954. This is the abortion bill that you may have read about this morning. This is a bill that, again, irrespective of your philosophical belief about abortion, this bill is mean. It makes women walking tombs. It says that you cannot have a medically necessary procedure simply because you counted wrong or you didn't get the information in time. It is a politically craven bill that I think serves no one's interest. It refuses to acknowledge long-standing principles of protection, not only of women who find themselves with children with fetal anomalies, but also those who are victims of rape and incest. It allows for absolutely no quarter for doctors to make smart medical decisions. And this is a bill, even if you believe that abortion should be unlawful, this is a bill that puts in danger not only the OBGYNs who perform those procedures, but all OBGYNs. Because when you start to attack women doctors and criminalize their making smart medical choices, the question becomes, where do we stop? And then there's 469. Because while we tell people in Arab countries and across the world that we believe that you should use your right to protest, we don't mean here in Georgia. And so we are making mass picketing in front of private residences illegal, which sounds, that's fine. But I want you to think about the last time you walked through a mixed-use neighborhood or mixed-use community and knew exactly where a private residence was versus a public building. They are intentionally targeting unions because Occupy Wall Street and Occupy Atlanta kind of upset some folks. But beyond that, it's less about who they're targeting than why they're targeting. Why we in the state of Georgia, one of the cradles of civil rights, would attack free speech is beyond me. But I think one of the best sights I saw during my entire tenure this year was walking into the hearing on 469 and seeing union members and Tea Party members join in lawful protest. I think it terrified everyone. So yesterday, the bill came out with the speed of light and in the dead of night without any real notice, and so will be on the calendar for consideration. But I think 469 is deeply, deeply flawed and highly problematic. There's also 458, which says to undocumented students, and I don't know of a 3-year-old who managed to cross a border on his or her own, that if you've managed to excel in our schools, make it through high school, and get yourself admitted to college and pay the 3.5 times the state tuition, that we will not let you get an education in Georgia. Not because you're taking a seat from another student, not because you can't afford it, but simply because your parents made a choice that you cannot undo. And as a state that has some of the best colleges and universities, but more importantly as a state that tries to be a bellwether for other states, I think it is deeply problematic and very sad that we would tell 318 children that your education stops here and goes somewhere else. Last but not least, there is 447, which is the unemployment insurance bill, which will fill a $700 million hole that we dug by giving a 12-year tax holiday to employers by forcing the unemployed to pay the difference. This is a bill that hasn't gotten a lot of press, but really should, because it's going to fundamentally alter the balance. Georgia is already one of the lowest paying states in terms of unemployment benefits, but this will reduce the number of weeks from 26 to 12 to 20. It will require a 1-week waiting period, and it will reduce the actual benefit given to the unemployed. In a state that has 9.4% unemployment, to tell these communities, not just these people, but their communities where in some counties, like Hancock County, the unemployment rate is closer to 14.5%. You're telling those counties that the people who live in your counties just are too lazy to find a job, but more importantly, that the employers who have gotten away for the last decade without paying their fair share continue to not have to pay their fair share. The one happy bill that managed to die a nice quiet death, and this is my last one, is HB 242, the anti-Sharia law bill that neither stops Sharia law nor solves any other problem that I can discern. Like obviously we don't like Muslims in Georgia, but luckily through a bipartisan effort, will never see the light of day, at least not until next year. And so with that, I will stop and take any questions.
Dick Pettis wrote a great column this week in which he compared the way that the tax reform bill was railroaded through the legislature with the way that the change of the state flag was railroaded through. And I'm sure you would have been in favor of changing the state flag too. But are you not troubled by the way that this was done?
Oh, absolutely. I serve on the committee of purview and found out about the bill the Friday before it came to the floor. I saw the bill at the exact same time everyone else did. I'm just pleased that it's not as bad as it was the last time. Part of my job is to sort of conform myself to the situation I find myself in. I have no ability to change the process. I find the process to be flawed. I think it's deeply problematic that in the House we're not allowed to make amendments to most legislation. I mean, this one, we agreed to not make amendments, but I believe that if an idea is worthy of debate and worthy of passage, it should be worthy of flight. And so I do find it deeply problematic. Now I will say...
So when does the issue of transparency not become one that changes your vote on the bill?
When the vote on the bill and the subject matter is more important than... I have to balance the process versus the policy. And there are moments where you realize that the policy is going to happen one way or the other. The question is, how informed can you be? And in this case, the policy I didn't disagree with. And I will give credit to the speaker and to the majority leader on this. I think it's still a bit problematic that something this fundamental happened in 2 days. I will say, though, that all of these component bills have been there in some form. And so there is some credence to the argument that this wasn't brand new. I at least felt like I understood what I was voting on. But I do think there should be a larger conversation in the public domain about transparency. I mean, it's troubling to me that the General Assembly exempts itself from open records and open meetings. We pass the law but say we don't have to follow it. And so that, I think, sets the tenor of how we're going to operate. I'm not as disturbed by 386 as some are. I'm more disturbed by what happened yesterday on 469 and 447, where duly elected members of the General Assembly got no notice and a bill was both introduced and the bill came out in less than 10 minutes, counting on the fact that people didn't know the meeting was happening, especially when the subject of the meeting was about free speech. I find that to be both hypocritical and deeply problematic. But I understand Mr. Pettis' concerns. I understand the public concern. But part of my job is to balance those concerns against the other concerns. And if there are ways to stop other bills or raise other issues, I have to temper how angry I am with what's coming next on the calendar.